This episode is brought to you by the Boot Chow Radio Podcast, episode 14. If you haven't listened to it yet, please click on the link below this video. The Ratchet & Clank series. It's probably one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. One reason why I'm a huge fan of the series is that it's a platformer series that we don't have as much like in the 90s, plus the best selection of weapons that I've seen in a video game series that made blowing shit up perfect for me. Plus earn bolts and gain some experience points for doing so. As a huge fan of the series since the beginning, I've made an open vote contest for my top 10 Ratchet & Clank games before this video was made. And if your favorite is not number 1 or higher, then it's your fault that you did not vote in time, or it didn't make as much vote as you expect it to be. But as of right now, the voting is closed, and there's no turning back. My name is Gexup, and I counted all the votes, and I'm here to give you my top 10 Ratchet & Clank games. Number 10! To be honest, it did not take me too long to put a Ratchet & Clank game to be in the bottom of this list, and that is Ratchet & Clank going mobile for the cell phone. I never expected to see the series to turn into 2D side-scrolling action platformer, and it's not as fun as the other Ratchet & Clank games. This game wasn't even made by either High Impact Games or Insomniac Games. It was created by a company called Handheld Games. No joke, that's the name of the company. Going mobile had a pretty decent selection of weapons, but the enemies weren't interesting nor the mechanics were that good. They also made the same game for Ratchet & Clank Clone Home, which was also mediocre, so both of those games made it to number 10. It's nothing special, it's just Ratchet & Clank turned to 2D for the phone. Number 9! The concept of Secret Agent Clank and Up Your Arsenal was memorable among many Ratchet & Clank fans, and High Impact Games decided to put that as a spin-off. It adventures Clank and his alter ego Secret Agent Clank to help his friend Ratchet from being framed for something he hasn't done. In Secret Agent Clank, you constantly change characters to play as Clank, Ratchet, and Quark. And for the first time ever, Clank's gameplay is similar to playing Ratchet. The game was a pretty interesting spin-off. I did enjoy the rhythm gameplay, cool selection of weapons and gadgets for a spy, and non-repetitive mini-games, and the sneakiness that reminds me of Sly Cooper. I did enjoy this game on the PSP, minus the fact that Captain Quark sings.
They were needing someone of great might, so for Avi, I put up a big fight.
Number 8. Right after Tools of Destruction was released, Insomniac has released a downloadable game, Ratchet & Clank Quest for Booty. It picks up right after Tools of Destruction, and Ratchet begun his quest to find Clank, who was kidnapped by the Zonies. This Ratchet & Clank game has a lot of puzzles to solve and a decent amount of creative platforming. To be quite honest, there isn't much to say because Quest for Booty is in the middle of the future trilogy and there's no beginning and there's no end. More disappointing about this game is that it takes about 3 to 4 hours to play and they charge $39.99 US for that? But I can tell you one thing I liked about this game. They did brought back all the characters from Tools of Destruction and they gave us a surprising plot twist at the end, which I'm not going to spoil. Number 7. While we were all waiting for Ratchet & Clank to debut in the PS3, High Impact Games gave us Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. Never have I expected to see a Ratchet & Clank game on a handheld, and you know what? This PSP game is actually really good. The story is about Ratchet & Clank as they were interrupted from their vacation to search for a kidnapped girl and encounter a race known as the Technomites. Even though this game looks like the unfinished version of the first Ratchet & Clank game, it did keep the nanotech leveling system, which was introduced in Go and Commando, that made the game bearable to play. You have a lot of action, creative platforming, really great level designs, and blowing shit up right on your portable system. This game was perfect for the PSP, but I have no idea how High Impact Games could fuck up the game so badly in the port on the PS2. Number 6! Insomniac knew that the Gladiator Arena battles were one of the best parts of the series, so they decided to make this a whole game. Often considered by many as the black sheep of the series, Ratchet Deadlocked abandoned the concept of being a platformer shooter and automatically became a third-person shooter. Ratchet, Clank, and Al were kidnapped and forced to complete in Dread Zone, a gladiator show in which heroes are forced to kill each other and compete in missions they select. This is the first game of the series that we didn't have Clank as an important role, and was replaced by Mark and Green, who had more capabilities than Clank himself, such as shooting at enemies, creating a barrier, create a bridge, and shoot out a special attack by Ratchet's command. This is the first time in the series that they introduced a 2-player co-op. The online multiplayer has greatly improved, but a little more unbalanced than Up Your Arsenal. Your main objective in the game is to reach to the top as the best gladiator in Dread Zone. Sure, Ratchet Deadlocked did not really feel like a Ratchet & Clank game because there aren't any huge exploration, and a lot of missions to complete that made it look like a chore. People often forget that this is supposed to be a spin-off. I don't know why so many dislike this game, but I thought it was awesome because you can level your weapons up to level 100 and more enemies to blow up than any other game that I've ever played. Number 5! Finally, the series made their debut on the PS3. Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction went back to its roots of being a platformer RPG shooter, and also made new innovations as well. Most of all, this is the first of the future series, and Insomniac made the story into a higher level by putting Ratchet to find his race, which is extinct, called the Lumbaxes. The visuals in this game is incredible, almost looking like a Pixar film. New to the series is the Star Fox style shoot 'em up, the addition of the devices, especially the Groovatron, and the rare Utanium crystals, which is the secondary money exchange besides bolts. Man, it feels like a breeze to finally play the old school style Ratchet & Clank game that we've been waiting for since Up Your Arsenal. I love this game a lot, but the only reason why I'm glad that it's not higher on this list is because of this other new feature included in this game, and that is the 6-axis controls. I thought it was completely gimmicky to tilt your controller just to make a movement from flying, falling, navigating the geolasers, and steering a metal ball to override the circuitry with the depth cryptor. I think people need to realize that innovations does not mean it's good. I mean, games like Lair that forces you to tilt your 6-axis controls throughout the game was not good at all, and I'm glad that the Ratchet & Clank series never went back to it.
Number 4!
In Insomniac's jump to the PlayStation 2, they abandoned Spyro the Dragon to start Ratchet & Clank, just like Naughty Dog did with Crash Bandicoot to start Jak and Daxter. The original Ratchet & Clank game was a fantastic start and made a 3D platformer like never before. There was so much exploration, bolts to collect, puzzles to solve, gadgets to advance to your adventure, and begun the blowing shit up phenomenon. And you get rewarded for the bolts for anything you destroy, or anything that's destroyable. The story in this game is really fantastic, and the character development between Ratchet & Clank was the best of the series. To me, the original Ratchet & Clank was the most atmospheric and the most nostalgic. Sure, this game did not age well for most fans of the series, but before the nanotech leveling system, this was the shit! It feels great to start from scratch, rather than taking all the stuff that the current Ratchet & Clank has for granted.
Number 3!
Insomniac Games has done a very good job in keeping the Ratchet & Clank series strong, and A Crack in Time is probably the best conclusion I have ever seen from a platformer game. Most of all, the gameplay mechanics improved to a greater level, and got rid of the gimmicky 6-axis controls. In the beginning of this game, Ratchet & Clank are having a separated adventure, having their own story. Clank's gameplay has phenomenally improved by giving him the ability to throw spears to slow enemies and objects down, triple hover, and a staff to use as a weapon, and puzzling elements such as recording himself to make duplications to solve many puzzles. They also made Ratchet to move fast as hell with the addition of the rocket boots, better selection of weapons, and so much more. The only downfall I have of this game is that the gladiator battles are not as big as the other games of the series, but that's forgivable when Insomniac has featured flying your ship freely between planets, going to small moons, and completing challenges, earning special items such as Sony's, gold bolts, and weapon mods in the process from some of the best platforming I have ever seen from the series. And all the stuff that you collect feels totally rewarding. I spent more hours exploring GTA style in space than blowing enemies up, and having Dr. Nefarious coming back as the main villain feels so welcoming. Two phenomenal stories colliding into one, epic comedy, and long hours of gameplay I've ever had in a 3D platformer. It's games like this that made me so happy to own a PS3.
Number 2!
Right after the success of the original Ratchet & Clank, Insomniac made everything that Ratchet & Clank did, Going Commando does better, and the tweaks and additions just push it further to the top. This is the one Ratchet & Clank game that made all the stuff that every Ratchet & Clank game is most known for. You not only have platforming and shit to blow up, but you have gadgets to solve puzzles, awesome mini-games, armory to buy, customizable ship, great sense of humor, plot twist storyline, every flaw fixed that was in the original Ratchet & Clank, starting with the Magnum boots, better selection of weapons, so many crystals to collect from non-linear worlds, chaotic gladiator battles, and the greatest feature of the series, the nanotech leveling system in which you kill a certain enemy, that weapon will gain experience points, and if you gain enough experience points for that weapon will evolve into a greater and more powerful weapon and gain more hit points that makes blowing shit up more rewarding than ever before. Yeah, sure, people did criticize the difficulty at the end, but that means it's your fault that you did not make your weapons and hit points at its maximum level before you even tried to finish the game. Since this game was released, not even one game from the series can overshadow the awesomeness that Going Commando has. I was expecting Going Commando to be number 1, but surprisingly enough, I had more votes for
Number 1!
Yep, you guys voted for Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal as the best Ratchet & Clank game of the series, and I can't disagree with it at all. With everything I said about Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal extended it to another level. The gladiator boss fights are bigger, the leveling system is more extended, and the selection of weapons, the best of the entire franchise, plus leveling them all up to level 8. This is the first game of the series that introduced multiplayer, which is the best multiplayer of the PlayStation 2, and a compelling campaign, even though the story was a little weaker than the previous before it. But it did have the best line of characters and the best comedy of the series. I mean, a Britney Spears parody with Courtney Gears was comedic gold. The adventure was fantastic for me all the way, and I had the best memory with this game with all my friends, and there were so many moments that I will forever cherish, which is the reason why I'm happy that Up Your Arsenal has the most votes and earns its special place for being number 1. So that's my top 10 Ratchet and Clank games, and for the past 8 years of blowing shit up was the best ever. Thanks for watching this video, give it a big thumb up, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe.